Welcome, everyone. Welcome to our dissemination series from the LIFE DICET project on aligning emission trading system. It's our great pleasure to have today Marissa Santikarn, who is taking this call from Washington, D.C. Welcome, Marissa. Marisa is a Thai-Australian national, and she's currently working as climate change specialist at the World Bank, but she has a lot of years of experience with carbon market pricing mechanisms. So before working for the World Bank, she was also working for ICAP, the International Carbon Action Partnership. And actually, Marisa, the type of work that you do links very well with our previous interviewee, Claudia Araujo, where she was explaining us that Latin American ETS are still under construction. So I would like to cite a blog of yours currently under the World Bank, which is updated handbook for emissions trading design and implementation, which could be useful to our audience. And also another useful document from yours, from your time in ECAP, which is a guide to linking ETS systems. So within the World Bank, Marisa is actually supporting the Global South on designing carbon pricing policies that, besides pursuing mitigation goals, they are strong on benefits. And we will be very interested to hear a bit more about that, Marisa. So I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. The first one is, we were very happy that you participated last week in our LIFE DICET project, the Carbon Market Policy Dialogue that happened on the 7th of July. And from your expertise and from your point of view, what would you like to share with the audience about the take-home messages from that event?
Thank you, Rosa, and thank you for the introduction. It was a very interesting discussion that I was part of the other week. And I think the main takeaway for me that was quite interesting to see is how the conceptualization and conversation on linking has really evolved in the past couple of years. I think initially, there was this conceptualization of linking as something that had to be very rigid and formal, where everything has to be aligned, and also came off as something that could be quite tricky, even though the economic benefits of cooperation could be very substantial. And partly, I think that's because we've had so few examples of linking at that stage. And now, I think there's been a broader reconceptualization of linking as really existing on a spectrum of loose collaboration of jurisdictions working together that are interested in linking, to this really much more formal conceptualization where everything is exactly identical and partners go forward together. And I think what the discussion really highlighted is the focus is very much on looking at the bigger picture. So for linking to move forward, what's really important is that both partners, or all the partners involved, as you could also have a multi-jurisdictional situation, is that there is trust, transparency, and agreement on the level of ambition. And once you sort of have agreement on these big pictures, the actual nitty-gritty of figuring out every single design detail, the question of whether or not and how much you need to align is sort of dependent on each situation. And I think broadening the conversation that way really opens up the possibility of linking and also the attractiveness of linking to cases where jurisdictions maybe hadn't considered it initially. So I think that that's a really positive move, and something that we're also seeing around the world with initiatives like the carbon pricing in the Americas, where you have jurisdictions basically from North America all the way down through Latin America, South America, that are interested in carbon pricing and are working together on building their own carbon pricing instruments. But whether or not there is actually this formal linking is not really the end goal or whole point of the exercise. And I think in these more collaborative models, there's also greater acknowledgement of some of the benefits that come from working together, whether or not there is actually linking. So, that's something that the World Bank also tries to generate through its initiatives like the Partnership for Market Implementation, where we're building a network of those working on carbon pricing and carbon pricing experts to share their experiences, to share best practices, to potentially leverage mechanisms and software where it makes sense. And so the process of designing your carbon pricing instrument can be sped up, and there's some leapfrogging to some extent. So I think having these sort of supportive structures and seeing it as a type of linking is a really positive development in how this dialogue has evolved.
Thank you so much, Marisa. So just building on a few ideas from your answer, basically we're moving from a conceptually more rigid idea into something much more flexible with much more space for jurisdictional involvement beyond the fact that there is or there is not a linking, but there is this promotion of north-south and south-south dialogue, which is actually an absolute fantastic way of training stakeholders of all levels under the framework of the of the Glasgow post COP26 with the Article 6. Do you see more space for a higher collaboration with the Global South?
Yeah, so I think the conversation on Glasgow and also the opportunities for cooperating across jurisdictions in achieving NDC targets as a result of some of the initial rules we've seen on Article 6 is a really positive development in starting to build more confidence in carbon markets, and also allowing jurisdictions that are interested in that to try and see what role international carbon markets could play in achieving their national targets. There are still a lot of questions that need to be answered in terms of the further modalities, and also countries having to develop their own long-term Article 6 strategy, because this will obviously have implications for future NDC targets, for how countries will scale up their own national climate targets in respective sectoral policies. So this is an area in which the World Bank is working on to help countries come up with a sustainable and robust Article 6 strategy, and also working on the kind of infrastructure and technical foundation that countries can use if they were to become involved in trading. And so this is through initiatives like the Climate Warehouse.
Wonderful, Marisa. Well, thank you so much. I think we will need to have a next interview after the following COP to see how Article 6 evolve. And basically, we expect to host you one day here at the Florence School of Regulation at the European University Institute. Thank you very much for inputs, Marisa. See you soon.
Great. Thank you so much for your time.
Bye.
With a contribution from the LIFE program of the European Union.